Spoke a word and life began. Told oceans where to start and where to end. You set in motion time and space, but still you come and you call to me by name. Still you come and you call to me by name. If you can hold the stars in place, you can hold my heart the same. Whenever I fall away, whenever I start to break, so here I am lifting up my heart to the one who holds the stars. As we were praying this morning as a band, God just brought me to a place of almost like the prayer of Job. And if you don't know his story in the Bible, I would really encourage you to read it. Job had everything. He was on the mountaintop. And yet, just as the enemy does come to steal, kill, and destroy, wreaked havoc in Job's life, lost his family, lost his business. His world came crashing down and crumbled. The enemy's goal was for him to curse God. And he goes to his friends and he just asks them for counsel. And I don't know about you, but again, sometimes even our friends who mean well, they are not giving us the appropriate counsel, because sometimes we are searching for significance in only where God can give us identity. And where God wants unity and he wants oneness. The enemy wanted to come and just literally destroy Job. And God, in his own majestic way, sort of gives a reprimand, but only way God can do it. And he says, do you have any idea who puts those stars in the sky? Any idea what makes the flowers come up or the seas that go in? You're finite. You only can see what you see. You don't see what I see. God was trying to get Job not to focus on his losses or what the enemy was trying to do, but focus on trusting him, knowing that God has a perfect plan in a way. So you have to believe, church, in faith, that if he put those stars in the sky, he loves you and he will call you by name. He saved you for a plan and a purpose. Just seek him today. Don't miss what he wants to do in your life, because he's been forever the same, yesterday, today. In the bleak midwinter, all creation groans for a world in darkness, frozen like a stone, 'cause light is breaking in a stable for a throne, and he shall reign forevermore, forevermore, and he shall reign forevermore, forevermore. Unto us the child is born, the King of kings and Lord of lords, and he shall reign forevermore, forevermore. If I were a wise man, I would travel far. If I were a shepherd, and I would do
All right, church. It's time to break up with relationship goals today. The time has come. So good to see all of you here this morning. Again, my name is Jimmy. I'm one of the pastors here at Forward Point. Sometimes when you're in a series, there's a message or an entire series that sometimes you put together, and it's designed. You're putting stuff together, researching to preach to people, and sometimes the message takes a hold of you and preaches to you. And this is one of those messages that, if for nobody else, I think it is definitely for me. When I think about this last week, my relationship with my wife, and there's some things that have kind of come to the surface, that kind of cause you to stop and wonder, feel like maybe there's some trust issues going on underneath the surface, and wondering, God, is there going to be a way that you're going to be able to bring us out of this as a result of these things that we're going through and have come through the surface's break this last week. And my wife had a friend up from Florida, and throughout the course of that, again, I'm at Apple working, and I find out about some things, and it really kind of brings you to a point where you're confronted with, are you going to put this stuff into practice, or are you going to allow it to destroy you, to tear down everything you've worked for and built up? And Chris, I don't know if you could do me a favor to see if the keynote is open on the computer. I can't bring it up. But yesterday I found out from my wife, again, just trying to be open and real and honest with you when we come to these times of vulnerability. When you feel betrayed, right? When a spouse does something that, or someone in a relationship, and it feels like it hurts or cuts you deep. Yesterday, after getting home from work, I found out from my wife that she took the kids out to Chick-fil-A without me. What were you guys thinking, huh? Come on now, right? This is one of those things in a relationship or a marriage that it feels like it could seriously undermine any kind of trust that you have going on, right? We're in the middle of the series talking about relationship goals, and sometimes it feels like there's different things that could happen or come about where it would just potentially destroy any foundation you have for the covenant that you've made with your spouse, right? The vows that you've committed. And for me, if you've been here for any length of time, you know that Chick-fil-A is one of those things for me that is right there next to going to church. So I'm so glad that they're closed on Sunday so I can go to church, because if they weren't, I would be very conflicted on whether or not I'd be here or be there. But we've been in this series talking about relationship goals, and we've gone over a couple different things about... Interesting question. Oh. Having some technical difficulties here. So we've been talking about some different things that we can do to have relationships goals, right? When you look on social media, you see these pictures of people who kind of seem to have it all together, right? And they have these picture-perfect snapshots that they post on Instagram, and usually there's this hashtag on there that says relationship goals, hashtag relationship goals. It's this idea that we see that and we think, man, I want that. Whether or not you're in a relationship right now in life, or you think, man, someday when I have somebody in my life, I hope that my relationship is something that resembles that, right? And we don't know what's on the other side of the picture. We don't see the 14 different snaps it took to get it just right? Because you got little Johnny or Susie, who's 4 years old, who doesn't even know how to, take a picture, but you're trying to instruct them while trying to pose in this picture-perfect place at the same time. And we think these unrealistic expectations coming out of this idea, man, I want that in my life. And we started off with this idea of relationship goals, talking about the principle of being Christ-centered. Just because we are calling ourselves a Christian doesn't mean that we are Christ-centered, either in our own personal lives or in our relationship. We want to be Christ-centered. And we talked about this idea of, what does it look like to be mission-driven? How do we get together and be aligned together in this way where we're on mission together with God, right? Because what God seeks to unite and bring together, the enemy wants to come and bring division, right? Division is having two visions, two people maybe living separately in the same house, maybe sharing the same last name, but under these two different visions. Then last week we talked about being devil kicking. When the enemy comes to undermine what God cherishes and what God has designed, we need to be devil kicking. We need to close the door. We need to slam the door. We need to choose to not struggle with things in the future by saying no to it now in our lives. If you're married here this morning, how many of you married somebody who is completely opposite from you? Or maybe you're in a relationship with somebody completely opposite from you. Some people a little shy, looking to their left and to their right to see if it's okay for them to say yes, right? Isn't it interesting how when you're dating, this opposites attract, right? It's like, oh, but then what happens when you get married or you're in a relationship, all of a sudden opposites begin to attack, right? What once was so beautiful and so dreamy, right? Oh, I can't believe it. We can just be lazy together on the couch for hours and just enjoy each other's presence and not have to say anything. He's so dreamy, right? Then after you get married, it's like, get up and get a job, right? You're so lazy. All you do is play video games. What once was an attraction, now all of a sudden has become an attack. Or how many of you maybe are the savers in the relationship, right? You save, you got the budget, you got everything worked out, and maybe the other person didn't even realize that saving was an option, right? As soon as it comes, they're just making it rain dollar bills, wherever they're at, spending money as quickly as it comes in, right? Or what about sometimes you have the punctual one, right? The person who's always on time and even being on time is late, so you're always maybe a few minutes early. And then you have the other person who's maybe more, we'll say, flexible with their arrival time, right? They like to make a grand entrance. They like to be, make sure everyone knows that they've arrived. Or maybe in the relationship, there's one of you who's more organized, right? Everything has its place, and you have your system, and if someone messes with it, it kind of throws your world into a tizzy, and maybe the other person is a little bit more creative with the way that they organize things and the systems that they put into place. Right? We have these goals, and it seems like a perfect fit, right? I wanted that, and it seemed like these things, we are attracted, and opposites attract, and now I'm not feeling it so much anymore. And we're hoping that you have some relationship goals, whether you're single, whether you're engaged, whether you're married, that you would have some relationship goals, and as followers of Christ, we have some relationship goals that are probably a little different than what you see when you look around in the culture today. Or you look around and you see the things that maybe it's important to some relationships that don't choose to center their lives around God, and it's probably a little bit different. So what are our goals? We already talked about being Christ-centered, mission-driven, devil-kicking, and today we're going to be talking about what it means to be covenant-keeping. Covenant-keeping. What are our goals? You saying with me? You guys remember them? We're going to be Christ-centered, mission-driven, devil-kicking, and we're going to be covenant-keeping. Yes, that's right. Well done, Stephen. Teacher's pet in the front row. To set up some background for today, Jesus was posed this question in the book of Matthew, and it's some religious leaders who come up to him, and they have this question trying to follow up his ministry. And it says, some Pharisees came to him to test him. They asked, is it lawful, Jesus, for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason, right? It's kind of like when you send a text message and you're like, hey, asking for a friend, but is this okay to do, right? What are you doing with those leftovers, right? Asking for a friend. It's kind of like these religious leaders were fishing for some kind of loophole, maybe for their own personal relationship that they were in. Jesus, is this allowed? And then Jesus responds this way. He says, haven't you read? He replied. Now he's talking to religious people who more than likely not only read but haven't memorized these words. And he kind of challenges them. He says, hey, have you forgotten? Haven't you read? Don't you know that at the beginning, the Creator, he made them male and female. and said, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother, and they will be united to his wife. And the two," what happens? "Will become one." One flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. How's that for a simple yes or no question, right? What God unites, we talked about last week, right? What God wants to unite and what God has designed, our spiritual enemy wants to come and to divide. So what does it mean to be covenant keeping in our marriage? Well, first, what I'd like to do is when I look at some ways that maybe people approach marriage in our culture today. The first one, if you're taking notes, I encourage you to write these down. It's this idea of this kind of casual approach, right? Marriage is just a piece of paper, and you know, it's no big deal. Easy come, easy go. It's not really that big of a deal. And then there's a second kind of approach called is this contractual approach. You got to sign on the dotted line, and it's legal, right? A lot of times Christians get caught up in making sure that marriage is just for a man and a woman, and it's what maybe the government sees as this contractual piece of paper. But a Christ-centered relationship goes much deeper than just the contract that maybe you signed. And then there's this last approach, this covenantal approach. It's where we're saying marriage is a holy covenant that was established, that was designed by God as a part of creation. So let's talk a little bit about these. This first one is this idea of a casual approach, right? It's no big deal, right? I might get married, or maybe I might not. This really doesn't matter one way or the other. And whenever you have this kind of casual approach to marriage, it generally leads to a casual approach to sex, right? As long as it's maybe two consenting adults, and it's not really anyone's business, as long as we're not hurting anyone, right? I got my needs. If it feels good, do it. After all, it's not really that big of a deal. It doesn't matter. And then what happens is that thinking begins to evolve even more as we permeate in it. If marriage isn't a big deal, and if sex isn't a big deal, and if we love them, right, or at least we maybe like them a whole lot, right, and it's relatively convenient, then we might as well just move in together. Because after all, it doesn't really matter anyways, right? It's not a big deal. In Barna Research, they did this study, and they found that about 57% of individuals either were currently or had previously lived with someone who was not their spouse, someone that was just their boyfriend or girlfriend. And now we kind of hear that number, and it may not have quite the shock that you would think, but maybe a generation ago, or even a couple generations ago, if you said that, then poor grandma would have probably fallen over with a heart attack to think about that. But now it's the norm. Because really, it's not a big deal. It's easy. It's convenient. We can save money and help us have a better start to when we do get married. And what happens is we're kind of testing things out, making sure, maybe we just want to make sure we're good at it before we seal the deal. And if you're here this morning and then you find yourself, maybe you're in one of these situations where living with a boyfriend or girlfriend, the intention here this morning is not to point you out or to call you out or to heap all this shame upon you. Because we love you here at Forward Point. You're always welcome. But we all have sin. We all have our different things that we struggle with and that we're working through. But we want to call it what it is. So let's talk through some of the effects of what this kind of casual view of marriage does to us. Let's say that we're going to live together with this person that maybe we really, really like a lot, maybe even love, we're not sure. But we're going to do some things that are typically reserved for couples who are married. And we're going to move in, and then you put your toothbrush right in the little toothbrush holder by the window there next to his toothbrush. And, you put your clothes in the drawers, and you start to share the bills together, and you share an address. Maybe you start sharing a sandwich, right? You share the bed. And you do these married things even though you're not really married. And if things don't work out, then, you take your clothes, right? And you take your toothbrush out of the little toothbrush holder, and you take your half of the sandwich, and you break up. And then probably not too long after that, you get together with someone else, and you go through the whole process again, and you get your toothbrush, and you put it in the toothbrush holder, and you fold your clothes nicely, and then you go through the process again, and you break up. And this goes on until you get to that spot where you meet and you find the one. Right? And all of a sudden, all the love songs on the radio just start to make sense, and you got this constant kind of pitter-patter in your heart of feelings. And this is that person that it makes you want to settle down and be a better person. And opposites attract, right? You're together and you're attracted, and then you're married, and then opposites attack. And it's not like what you thought it was going to be. And things get complicated. She squeezes the toothpaste from the middle of the tube, right? He doesn't put the toilet seat down. I mean, come on, how barbaric. And now he snores even louder than he did before, and you can't sleep, and it's having a toll on your life and your health. So when things get difficult, right, the way it goes is that we do what we've always done. We separate and we break up and divorce. And why is in our culture divorce so common? It's because a lot of people have been playing house and have pretending to be married and have been practicing divorce in their lives with one person after the other. So if marriage is only a piece of paper and it's no big deal, and then sex is, if it feels good, do it, then why would we not end up in divorce? And could it be that this is a consequence in our culture of this kind of casual approach to marriage? There's a casual approach. And then we have this kind of contractual approach. Right now, this is what anybody in the USA does, right, when you get married. Right? You go to the courthouse, you get the piece of paper, and it's got to be signed. And I've signed multiple contracts, okay? Not because I've been married multiple times, but because I've officiated weddings, all right? So just set that straight. But the problem is, if that's all that marriage is this contract, right, where you're signing on the dotted line, the thing is contracts are based on this idea of mutual distrust with the other person. Right, think about it. If you really trust someone, then maybe you shake hands, or maybe a little fist bump or an elbow, or you say and you let your word be your bond, and you just do it, right? But if you don't trust somebody, then I need you to sign on this piece of paper. All right, just in case you decide to do something shady or not live up to your word, then I want to have something to protect my rights, to protect what I'm owed, to protect what I'm deserved. So we have these contracts. My wife was at a birthday party of some friends of ours, and somebody else at the party that we didn't know hit the car. You kind of bumped into it trying to park, and we don't know them from Adam, and they were kind of like, oh, let me just pay you the money. And we're like, no, you need to write something down here. We won't call the police, but let's write this down in writing because I don't know you, my man, and you ruined our car, right? So we have these contracts because we just, I'm not quite sure that I trust you or know who you are. Want to make sure I'm protected. So if we enter into marriage and say it's a contract, right, then as long as you live up to your end of the bargain, right, you make me happy and you do the things that you say that you're going to do, then we have a deal. But if you don't, right, maybe you call me a name or maybe you treat me a certain way or maybe you just don't make me happy anymore, since I feel like you broke your side of the contract, then I'm no longer bound by my side of the contract, and we can just go our separate ways in divorce. Right? There's the casual approach. It's just no big deal. Whatevs. There's a contractual approach, right? I'm in as long as you're in. And then lastly, we have this third approach, and it's a covenantal approach. See, it's not based on mutual distrust. It's not temporary. It's not motivated by some kind of self-preservation, but it's a covenant. It's based on a mutual commitment with one another. Unconditional, right? It's an unconditional commitment that's motivated by this sacrificial love for the other person. So let's kind of do some groundwork here. First off, what is a covenant, right? Most of us don't just go around saying, "Hey, let's enter into a covenant together," right? We don't really hear that word much in our culture, but it's a very important word, a very important spiritual word, especially to God when we talk about marriage and our life centered on Him. The word covenant, it comes from this Old Testament Hebrew word barif, okay? And simply translated, barif means to cut. Okay, so when you see a covenant, there's always some kind of shedding of blood involved when making a covenant in the Old Testament. When two people entered into a covenant, usually there would be, the shedding of a blood of a bull, or maybe 7 lambs, something like that to signify, with the cutting of the bull and then the blood pouring out, a covenant was being made, right? You would get one half of the bull, and I would get the other half of the bull, and we'd kind of do this thing where we'd walk around the bull, 7 times, okay? And I'm just going to do it one time because I don't want to get dizzy. And in this process, essentially, what they were saying is that, should it happen to me as it happened to the bull if I don't honor my commitment that I've made? In the same way that the life was taken from this bull, may it happen to me if I don't live up, if I don't honor my commitment. And if you go to an Old Testament Hebrew wedding, it was structured around really the same idea, that the priest would ask for the hand of the bride and then the hand of the groom, and they would bring them together. And then maybe you've probably seen these in any kind of medieval movies, right? And the priest would kind of cut or nick the hand of one and then the other, so there was blood. And then they would join their hands together, so the blood literally would start to come together and to mingle as one blood. And what was happening was this playing out of how God designed things in Leviticus, right? Where it says that the life of the person is in the blood. And what we're doing is we're exchanging life with each other. And our two fleshes are literally now becoming one flesh in this moment. And then the priest would usually bind their hands together with some kind of twine or, fancy ribbon. It was this kind of outward showing that the two are in the process now of becoming one flesh. And then before God and before all their friends and family who were there, they would share their covenant vows with one another for everyone to hear and keep them accountable. And then after this, they would go away for a short time, okay? This is the exciting part, right? They would go to a place called Hapa, all right? You can write that down if you want and test your friends out later, right? This is where we get words like Hapa the Hut, right? And things like that. So they would go to this place, and it was like the bridal suite, the honeymoon room, we'll call it, right? And the couple would leave the wedding ceremony and what everyone else was doing there in the party, and while everyone else was just waiting there, they would go to the Hapa. And while they were in the Hapa, they were getting their Hapa on, okay? And in theory, what would be happening, now tell me this isn't a design by God, right? The virgin groom, and I'm not going to use any hand motions for this, the virgin groom would enter into the virgin bride, and there would be a shedding of blood that happens. And physically, they would be becoming, again, one flesh. And then once they sealed the deal there with their covenant before God, they would come back to the ceremony where everyone was at, waiting for them, right? Kind of awkward to walk back into the room and everyone's there still waiting. kind of noticing, why is your hair all disheveled, right? Man, that was kind of quick. You guys left already, right? Awkward. But it was this playing out of God's design of two fleshes becoming one. And if you see anything in that, I pray that you see that God designed this in a way where he says, you know what, marriage matters. It matters to God, and it should matter to us. So does the gift of lovemaking, which is this gift, this good gift from God and given to us as his children, it matters to him. In Hebrews, the author says this: marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. Right? All means all. Right? If you're a kid, then you honor the covenant of marriage. If you're a teenager with raging hormones, then you honor the covenant of marriage. If you're 22 and single and still have your needs, then you honor the covenant of marriage. If you're 31 and waiting and dating with this deep desire for mating, then you honor the covenant of marriage. If you're 47 and divorced, the marriage bed should be kept pure, because marriage matters to God, and the gift of lovemaking matters to God. The way we talk about marriage and sex in the churches, it's got to change. Right? Growing up for me at home and at church, it was always this no. It's wrong, it's bad. And it kind of messes with your mind. You don't really understand the reality of it. It's beautiful, it's great. It's kind of like my boxers, okay? Now, not the boxers that I'm wearing now, but in college, my parents were kind of weird. They would always buy me boxers. It just seems like a strange thing for parents to give their kids. I don't know. But that's one of the things that they did. All right, and this one pair, all over, it just said, no, right? I don't know what they were trying to tell me by that, right? But I don't know if they knew when you turn off the lights, they glue in the dark, and it was yes, right? Kind of undermining something there, right? But instead of telling our kids just constant message of no, wrong, bad, our message should be wait. Right? Because something holy, it's coming. Something beautiful, something God honoring can happen. You just wait. I was reading an article about one of the Jonas brothers, and he talked about they come from a Christian family and home, and how he saved himself for marriage, and he felt this big sense of disappointment because, you know, the marriage night was kind of awkward, and it didn't live up to the hype of constantly being told, no, this is wrong. You got to save yourself for the one person, and it's just going to be like, woohoo, right? And it didn't turn out that way, and he felt like he'd been lied to. Because the message is not no. The message is wait for something beautiful that's going to honor God. Now, to those of you here this morning who maybe in your life right now are saying nothing but yes, okay? Maybe you're feeling a little bit hot under the collar, like, yeah, can we turn the lights down a little bit here? Maybe there's some conviction going on in your heart, and I want you to wrestle with that. You know, what do you do with that? Because the best news that you will ever hear is that Christ makes you new. No matter what you were doing last month, no matter what you were doing last night, Christ this morning can and wants to make you new. By the grace of Jesus, you can be forgiven, and today can be a new day for you. And you can decide that from this moment forward, I'm going to honor the covenant of marriage. And then one day before God and before your friends and before your family, you'll have a situation with two individuals becoming one flesh, both spiritually and physically. And it'll be beautiful. Or you can, keep you do you. Right? Marriage is just a piece of paper. It's no big deal. Marriage is just a contract that you sign, and if they don't live up to their side of it, then I get my reason to leave. I have my excuse. The choice is yours. To choose, what do you want to be? Right? Because to be Christ-centered, there's a big difference between calling yourself a Christian and living a Christ-centered life. And when we're mission-driven, right, we're united in a higher calling, in a bigger purpose for our life, where it doesn't matter what comes our way, we're united together going towards the same direction. And when the enemy comes to seek to divide what God has brought together, we're going to be devil kicking. And we're going to be covenant keeping. This isn't a casual approach. It's not just a contract. It's so much more. It's designed by God for so much more in our lives. It's easy to kind of stick you with the truth and then maybe wrap a bow around it and make it sound super easy, right? I get my 30 minutes up here on stage and I create this picture for you of how easy it is. Just choose this. And I know some of you here may be dealing with relationships that you've been living in and it's just always been this way and you don't know anything different. Or maybe there's some others of you who you've been hurt by massive amounts of betrayal and abuse, mental, physical, emotional. Maybe there's dysfunction and there's pain. But either God is Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. And sometimes, I'll be honest, we don't feel like loving. I don't feel it, right? Sometimes I don't feel like forgiving. Sometimes I don't feel like working on it and trying to make our relationship better. But let me ask you this. How many other areas of your life can you just bail on because you don't feel like it, right? Oh, I didn't feel like waking up to feed the kid, right? So I just let him cry all night. I didn't really feel like paying my taxes, so I just skipped that part this year. Hope that doesn't come back to get me. I didn't feel like it. I'm not going to go to work for the next 3 months because I don't feel like it. Probably won't be going to work much longer than that. No, you do it because it's right. You do it because it's what you're supposed to do. We choose to be Christ-centered. We choose to be mission-driven. We choose to be devil-kicking, and we choose to be covenant-keeping. Because the misconception a lot of Christians have about God is that it's a casual relationship, right? Just like a casual marriage, it's this casual relationship with God, right? It's cool. We understand each other, right? He always forgives and I always sin. I mean, it's cool. We got this working relationship. He's got his job security. And we're just chill. And others see their relationship with God as this contractual relationship, right? I live up to my part, and he better live up to his part. If I have a good attendance record at church and I go more times than I don't, then I better have my blessing. This contractual view of their relationship with God. But the problem is we don't always live up to our side of the deal. And God's side of the deal is not always the way that we think or want. And the truth about God is that it's not casual. He doesn't want a casual relationship with you. It's not contractual. He's not happy with just this feeling of mutual distrust. The old covenant in the Old Testament is they literally, whenever there was sin, once a year they would get together and they would take a lamb and they They would slit the throat of the lamb and the blood would come out, and it would be this symbol of a pure, spotless lamb covering for the sins of the people for that year. And it was a broken system, but it was the system that they had, right? Think about even as far back as the garden, right? In the garden, you had this incident where sin first entered into humanity. And Adam and Eve were naked and they were ashamed and they had these kind of fig leaf thing going on, and all of a sudden they have clothes, right, made out of animal skin. Now, you would think that the animals were killed just because to give them clothes, but the fact was something had to atone, had to cover their sin. And for the first time, they saw the consequences of their sin laid upon these animals. And for the first time, they saw life, the last breath, just leave as a consequence of their sin. And that took us to the crucifixion, where Jesus would become the ultimate perfect sacrifice to cover all of our sins. Powerful enough to not just once a year, or not to be done once every generation, but for the rest of time, this pure and perfect sacrifice. And the blood that he spilt and poured for us would be enough to cover all. And we live under that covenant with God. That's a covenantal relationship that we can have with God this morning. It's one that doesn't run out, right? But when we're Christ-centered, and when we're mission-driven, and when we're devil-kicking, and we're covenant-keeping, and we choose. My prayer is that those four things would haunt you in your dreams as many times as you've seen them this month. Will you bow your heads with me as we close this morning? God, we thank you so much that we don't have to just enter into this relationship thing just kind of jumping from a plane and hoping that the parachute works. But we can have faith and we can have confidence in the fact that you designed us. Each and every intricate part that by itself, the eye and the brain, and it blows our mind to think of the intricacy, but you designed all of those pieces, and you brought those pieces together to form this body, and you designed this world and the way that we live and the way that we interact in a way, and you said this is a better way. It's not a no, don't do this, this is bad, you're going to get in trouble, you're going to ruin things, but it's a wait, I have something beautiful that I want to give you. God, for all of us this morning, before we can have a Christ-centered relationship, we need a Christ-centered life. And this morning, God wants to take some relationships from this casual approach or this contractual approach, and he wants to bring into a covenant relationship with you. It doesn't matter what was going on this morning, last night. This morning, there can be a fresh pouring of his grace upon your life as you choose to repent, to just simply turn and choose what is higher and to walk away. So if you're here this morning, there may be some confessions that need to be made. In your heart, in your spirit, maybe just mumbling with your breath just enough that you got to get it out to confess before God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way that I've taken advantage, taken lightly this relationship that you've been offering me. I want to walk away from this casual approach. I want to walk away from this contractual approach, and I want to enter into this covenantal relationship with you. God, the sacrifice that you made, I pray you would just cover our sins. And if that's something that you did this morning for the first time, then there's rejoicing happening right now because of your life that is now living on purpose. Whether you're single, you're married, you've become Christ-centered this morning, and now you're going to be mission-driven. God has a purpose for you. You were created on purpose for a purpose. And you're going to be devil kicking. If you're here this morning and maybe you just want a special, you need a prayer for you're single and you want to change the way you've always looked at marriage, or you're in a relationship and it's not honoring what you feel God is calling you this morning to be, or maybe you're in a relationship, a marriage, and it feels like it's falling apart, and in some end of the spectrum you need God to do a work in your heart for your current or future relationship. I'm just going to ask, no one's looking around, but I'm going to pray for us. If you would just confess this before God, that this is what God's calling you to do, that you just place both your hands on your heart. Just as your confession before God, God, this is where I'm at in life. I want to prepare myself this morning for who you have for me in the future, or I need, God, you to heal some things in my heart so I can begin to do the work and seeing restoration in our relationship. God, you see every person just confessing before you a desire to align themselves in their relationship with the way that you design things. God, in their relationship, it wouldn't be any longer just a casual approach to hope that you just do things in their life. It wouldn't be a contractual where it's just doing it as far as I can protect myself and get what I deserve out of this, but there would be a sacrificial commitment this morning to be in covenant relationship with their future or current spouse. God, that all the years of no, we would just be obliterated by the life-giving message of wait for something beautiful that I have for you. Something that can be more beautiful in the short period of time than the maybe long period of time you feel like you've been waiting. God, just heal relationships, heal hearts, heal marriages. And may we go from here living on purpose with real relationship goals, practical relationship goals founded in who you designed us to be. We thank you so much for this work you're doing in us. May you continue to work in us so we can be people that you can use in our homes and in our communities and our workplaces to help people find their purpose, to bring people into this same relationship with you. We love you. Amen. Forward Point, we love you. If there's anything going on, if there's something in your life that you'd like prayer about or for, we're here for you. We'd love to walk with you through that. That's what this is all about. You're not alone. But as you go, make sure you're loving on people, no matter where they're at. Give them a high five, a hug. This is what life's all about. Have a great week. We'll see you next week as we start up Elisha.